Super Smash Bros. Switch is on the way, and although we don't know too much about it yet, one of the few things that we do know is that Link's out and Link's in. Okay, so we don't know for sure that Twilight Princess Link is gone, but he probably is, because Breath of the Wild Link is almost certainly taking his place. Just as Twilight Princess Link in Smash Bros. 4 and Brawl replaced the Ocarina of Time Link from Smash Bros. Melee and 64. Now, whereas that was primarily a cosmetic change, Breath of the Wild Link is a very different character to the other Links, being dependent on a largely disposable inventory, along with different equipment and abilities. He doesn't even have a hookshot for Cuckoo's sake. And it's for these reasons that we wanted to try and figure out how Link could work in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch, and how his character might leverage his abilities from Breath of the Wild while paying tribute to the Link from Super Smash Bros.'s past, all the while having a little fun in the process too. And right off the bat, we're faced with a big problem. What the heck should Link use as his main weapon? After all, Breath of the Wild is all about scavenging for different weapons until they broke from wear and tear. But that wouldn't quite work in Smash now, would it? Even if it would be pretty funny if Link could somehow make off with DDD's hammer. But then again, one of the weapons that Link could find in Breath of the Wild was, of course, the Master Sword. And even though it's completely optional in the game, hell, I made it to Ganon without even finding the thing. We still think it's the best option for Link, especially because it acts as a bridge between all of Link's incarnations, both in and out of Smash Bros. And by retaining the Master Sword, the bulk of Link's basic moves can remain the same, including tilts, smashes, ledge attacks, and aerial maneuvers, which would make him instantly accessible to anyone that's used Link in Smash before. So that's good, and so far our job's been pretty easy. But hold up, there'd be a twist. In Breath of the Wild, the Master Sword could only be used for a set amount of time before becoming unusable, just like every other weapon. Except, instead of breaking, the Master Sword would eventually heal itself back to operating condition. And we think this mechanic would be a near-perfect fit for Smash Bros., just modified a little bit. So this time, the Master Sword would gradually grow weaker if used too often without giving it a chance to recover, thereby inflicting less damage with each subsequent attack. This would encourage you to mix up Link's moves in order to keep the Master Sword at full strength as often as possible, and thereby strike with the most power. But what if you don't hold back and just keep using the Master Sword excessively? Well, then just like in Breath of the Wild, it's shut down completely until it fully heals, which would force Link to fall back on the rest of his inventory in the meantime, pulling out a weaker weapon at random like a club or even a wooden stick that might break with a single hit. Okay, now that we have Link's primary attacks out of the way, let's move on to the real interesting stuff, the special attacks. And this is going to be where we see the biggest changes, because Breath of the Wild Link not only doesn't have a primary boomerang, but he has an entire set of rune special abilities that no Link has had before. Well, for the most part, but let's not get into that. And hey, there are 4 main runes, and we do have 4 special moves to fill. It's almost too perfect of a fit, right? Well, maybe not, because we're going to ruin that dream from the very start of Link's neutral special, which deployed the bow and arrow in past Smash Bros. Games. And we think that could still totally work, since the bow and arrow is a core part of Link's Breath of the Wild moveset too. But as with the Master Sword, we have a twist here too. Because, while Link has long used a variety of arrows throughout the Zelda series, that option is much more prominent in Breath of the Wild, with an even larger variety of arrows too. And we think that option can be reflected in Smash Bros. Switch. So as Link draws the arrow back, you could press a direction on the control stick to change the arrow's type, from the default normal arrow to a fire arrow, ice arrow, shock arrow, or bomb arrow. The catch would be that it would take slightly longer since Link needs to swap the arrows out, and you'd only have a very limited supply of each arrow type, maybe even just one each, and they would only be replenished with each stock. Once again, it would keep Link recognizable to his past Smash Bros. Appearances, while feeling new and reflective of Breath of the Wild at the same time. So let's move on to the side special where things get a little more, should we say, wild. In the previous Smash Bros. Games, the side special threw Link's boomerang, which has long been a key item of his inventory in the Zelda series, until Breath of the Wild, where it became just one of the many destructible items that Link could find. So while it could be kept in Smash Bros. On that basis, it wouldn't feel particularly true to Link's Breath of the Wild appearance. So given its significantly reduced presence, it's very likely on the chopping block to be replaced with something more befitting the character. Like, say, whipping out the Master Cycle Zero and riding it around Wario style. Just kidding, but that would be pretty great, wouldn't it? Instead, we think the side special will be a great place to put the stasis ability, temporarily freezing anyone in place that's standing directly in front of Link, but only for a very brief period of time, a second or two at most. And just as aiming at a live target in Breath of the Wild could be tricky, that would carry over here too, only working at a very specific range. And yes, it would have a cooldown just like in the main game too. That way Link can't become Mr. Freeze or something.
Alright everyone, chill.
Next up, let's move on to Link's down special, which used to be bombs, and still could be thanks to the bomb rune. But this time, instead of exploding on a timer or impact, they would be remote controlled as in Breath of the Wild, with the detonation being controlled by pressing down special again, similar to how Snake's C4 worked in Smash Bros. Brawl. So while this would require you to play a little bit more attentively, it would also allow much more flexibility, allowing you to set traps and play mind games. Is that bomb gonna go off or nah? Now, in Breath of the Wild, the bomb room was technically split in two: round bombs that can roll, and cube bombs that stay put. And that will be replicated in Smash Bros. 2, with a normal down special pulling out a round bomb, whereas tapping it would pull out a cube bomb instead. Kind of like how Samus can select between homing missiles and super missiles. So that's 3 specials down, leaving only Link's recovery or up special left. Now, even though Link's spin attack could theoretically still work, we think there are much better options available more befitting a Breath of the Wild Link, especially since the Master Sword might not even be available if it's worn down in our current moveset. So instead, we think Rivali's Gale and the Hang Glider would be an amazing 1-2 punch for Link's recovery, especially with how important flying was in Breath of the Wild. Rivali's Gale would of course give Link an instant vertical boost, while the Hang Glider would then allow him to sail at a flat rate. It might be a pretty big step up from his previous recoveries, which have ranged from poor to average. But it would also be fairly predictable. Oh, and you better believe that Link can still drop bombs while gliding too. And that about covers it for Link specials. But what do we do about his grab? After all, the hookshot is no more. But Breath of the Wild did have something a little bit similar in the form of Magnesis, and we think it might be an amazing replacement. They are both based on grabbing things at a distance after all. Now of course, the range would have to be dialed back quite a bit from Breath of the Wild, but it'd be worth it to see Link toss his enemies around while holding a giant magnet. And yeah, we realize not every opponent wears metal, so it may not make complete sense. But when you really think about it, does a Falcon Punch make any sense either? I mean, it is essentially a magical magnet, right? Now with a hookshot being gone, that means that Link would also lose the ability to grapple onto a ledge for recovery. But that's okay, because we have a better idea anyway. Climbing. I mean, come on, if there's one identifying feature of Breath of the Wild, this is it. And climbing absolutely needs to be part of Link's moveset in Super Smash Bros. Switch. After all, Smash Bros. Brawl and 4 already introduced wall clinging, and now Link can take it to the next level. Literally by climbing up to it. But just as in the game itself, he'd only be able to climb for a short period of time before tiring out, at which point he'd fall right off the wall, making it a potentially risky maneuver. So that leaves only one move left, the final smash. And we have a couple of ideas. First, if he wanted to pay tribute to Link's special abilities in Breath of the Wild, he could draw upon the power of Urbosa's Fury to create a lightning storm immediately around him. But our second idea is a little bit more cinematic, where Link would summon the 4 divine beasts. But instead of them taking aim at Hyrule Castle, they'd redirect their gaze onto the Smash Bros. Battlefield, creating a crisscrossing set of laser beams that would be near impossible to avoid. And that covers it for Link's moveset. Of course, there are a few other details we can already imagine too, such as how Link will almost certainly teleport into the arena at the start of a match, and his 7 alternative costumes will be a perfect way to bring in the various armor sets from Breath of the Wild, such as the Royal Guard uniform or the Gerudo set. Heck, they could even bring in the Twilight and Time sets to pay tribute to Link's Smash Bros. Predecessors. Oh, and I can't wait for Naked Shulk to take on Naked Link. And there we have it, our vision of how Link from Breath of the Wild could work in Super Smash Bros. On Nintendo Switch. But what do you think? Let us know your thoughts by posting in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Super Smash Bros. Switch and everything else Nintendo too.
Hey everyone, Derek here to check in as Andre checks out because I'm actually the one who edited this video together because he's currently out of town and we wanted it for this weekend. So I just wanted to pop in, take some credit, and plug some other Smash Bros. Related videos from us. There's my own moveset video that I did a few weeks ago on what the Inklings could play like in Super Smash Bros. For the Switch, as well as Andre's own making the case on why Captain Toad should be in Smash Bros. Be sure to check him out and stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Smash Bros. And other things gaming. Till then, bye.